Hey, Pastor, welcome to my show. My name's Kevin. I am your host today of Pastors Thriving. I am excited to be able to introduce you to a new friend of mine, Jason Purvis. Jason is a husband, father, CEO of Next Phase Leadership, where he equips Christian men to lead their homes with strength, humility, and unshakable faith. As a men's mental strength trainer and former pastor, Jason helps fathers break free from passivity and step into their God-given role as intentional leaders. Through practical tools and spiritual wisdom, he empowers men to raise kids with strong values, build marriages that thrive, and leave a legacy that honors Christ. Jason, welcome to my show today. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, Kevin, thank you so much. Glad to be here and so excited to talk to such a critical segment of our culture. I mean, quite honestly, the church ought to be the cultural driver in our
Mm-hmm.
world. Unfortunately, we know that's more often than not the case.
Yeah.
But our leaders in the church, the men and women who have chosen the great calling of stepping into a role of caring for the souls of the saints, of pastoring and nurturing, and so often sacrificing themselves over and over again in order to see the kingdom advanced. Oh man, it gives me chills. And quite honestly, thinking about it, I'm humbled to be here.
Gets you a little excited, huh?
Yeah,
Man, I love
definitely.
that. I love that. I love that. So you're obviously you said you're a former pastor. What are you into now? What are you doing?
So, by vocation, I am a certified financial planner. I
Okay.
help families on a day to day basis understand the magnitude of money and
Mm,
to really clarify the noise. So
okay.
it comes down to, in our world today, there's so much information available
Hmm.
that most people get overwhelmed and turn to a point where they get to paralysis by analysis and they do
Okay.
nothing, or they
Yeah.
just follow rules of thumb, standard thinking. And there's a lot of bad thinking around finances out there. I tell clients all the time, we've got to break your thumbs. Those rules of thumb,
Yeah.
they're going to be broken if you're going to do this the right way and
Wow.
not end up like the conventional American who has too little saved, is going to live too long, be too unhealthy, and not have the outcomes that they want. So that's my trade. Today, I'm super excited to talk about more specific things in the world of leadership
Hmm.
that I have been developing uh, this business for the last 2 to 3 years actively, outwardly. But
Okay.
honestly, my leadership training goes literally back to the third grade
Oh
in
wow.
being involved in leadership organizations and early development, basically because I was an at-risk kid. So they said, this kid's either going to go one way or the other, so we need to direct him. And I think they did a good job of at
That's
least keeping
awesome.
me out of too much trouble.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. Let's dabble with the money piece for just a minute because I think that's crucial. Both for 95% of America or the average American today. And then also kind of stepping into the church world for just a minute. Isn't there a kind of a fear around how to handle money? And isn't that part of the reason why we're seeing people struggle on a financial basis more often than not?
I would agree that there's definitely um, some mental blocks around money,
Mm.
and it can come from a lot of places. It can be from a poverty mentality
Oh yeah.
where, hey, we don't talk about money because we ain't got no money.
Right.
And, you have the old saying of the mom and, kids asking for, hey, can we go to McDonald's, mama? I want to get the new Sonic toy. They got to have McDonald's. I ain't got McDonald's money.
Right.
Right. And just kind of shutting down the conversation rather than engaging our children around the realities of our personal finances. And that's something that I encourage families to do, both in my business from a financial advisor perspective and in my leadership coaching and development. Our kids should have some level of awareness of our financial situation.
Mhm.
Just telling your kid, hey, we're not going to do that. We don't have money for that.
Yeah.
That puts a limiting conversation around them.
Hey, friends. Hey, I want to just bust into this podcast for just a quick minute. I've got a question for you. What if making disciples didn't have to be complicated? If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure of how to actually live out the Great Commission in your everyday life, then I've created something just for you. It's called the Make More Disciples Challenge, a powerful step-by-step journey designed to help you share your faith naturally, build intentional relationships, and create real impact without burning out or overthinking it. This is not another program. This is a movement to help everyday believers and church leaders, pastors, teachers, trainers, to activate their calling and multiply God's kingdom starting now. If you're ready to take that next bold step in your walk with Jesus, to lead others to do the same, join this challenge today. You know what? I need. Hey, Pastor. Hey, I just want to bust into this podcast for a quick minute. I've got a question for you. What if the disciple making process in your church could be simple, sustainable, and actually multiply? If you've ever felt that your church is stuck in maintenance mode, or like discipleship is more of a buzzword than a lifestyle, then the Make More Disciples Challenge is for you. This 5-day challenge is built specifically for pastors who want to activate real growth in their people and create a culture of multiplying disciples without adding another heavy program or burning out your leadership team. It's practical, it's biblical, and it's designed to help you do more than just lead. You're going to equip others to lead also. Join the challenge today and let's move your church from addition to multiplication starting right now. Check the show notes for information about my upcoming preview webinar, and I'll look forward to seeing you there. Now, let's get back to this episode. Do you also find that, we use those phrases like, the simple ones, money doesn't grow on trees, right? And we're framing this mentality of a scarcity or a limited net number that goes around. And so then there's that fight for a piece of the pie instead of recognizing the fact that we can just make more pie. We could just make all the pie in the world. And it really does come down to the way that you think about this, isn't it?
Yeah. And, when you think about it, right, we serve the God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills.
Yeah.
Right. But we have access to unlimited resources. Now, don't get me wrong. There are situations in people's lives where that access seems so far away.
Oh my
I
gosh,
did not grow up in wealth. When I was a kid, I didn't know people who made money. I didn't know people who knew people who made money. Right? Like, I grew up poor.
Yeah.
As a young adult and as a young married, my wife and I struggled. We received government assistance at times. So I'm not coming from a place of any silver spoons being put in my mouth, and I'm certainly not putting any silver spoons in my kids' mouths. But what I am putting into their minds is a mindset that says money is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a reward.
Right.
And I try and communicate to people that you need to spend according to your values. So I use this example of, somebody who wants, let's say, a luxury item. Let's say a painting, right? They're going to spend $10,000 on a painting, and they're going to put it up on their wall, and they're going to feel good about it. Well, many people would look at that and say, that's just a waste of money. It's a painting.
It's not necessary.
Yeah. But what if that painting was in alignment to their values, such that, hey, my family doesn't have any heirlooms. I don't have anything from my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. And I want to create something that is going to last beyond me.
Sure.
And so now when I buy that flashy item, it has a meaning and a symbol behind it of what it's going to provide in my family legacy. So I'm thinking beyond myself. Exactly. So now if you want to spend $10,000, if you want to spend $50,000,
it doesn't matter.
What's it worth to you?
Right. Yeah.
So shift your alignment according to your values. I tell people budgets suck. I'm not trying to limit somebody's spending. I'm trying to align it to their values. Right. And when you do that, all of a sudden, directing your money is fun.
It is
because
fun.
you know where it's going and it's aligning to your values.
And when you get a healthy perspective of it, there's always more coming.
Yeah. And there's a million side hustles and additional opportunities to create revenue.
Mm-hmm.
You can write a book. You can drive for Amazon. You can drive for Uber. You can rent your car out for somebody else to drive on Turo. There's so many opportunities, right? I mean, there's still kids selling lemonade at lemonade stands.
Mm-hmm.
Like those level of entrepreneurial activities exist. And so does 100 different ways you can utilize this device
100.
to create an opportunity for yourself.
Yeah. Man, I love that. And honestly, I get a little bit proud papa moment here. My son is 17 years old now. He came to me 2 years ago, around this time, 2 years ago, 15 and a half years old he was. And he said he wanted to start a car wash business. So I believed in
Nice.
him, and he went at it. 2 years later, my son last Friday just brought home, it's not a brand new, but it's a 2016 Porsche Macan that he paid cash for. At 17
Nice.
years old, he bought a $20,000 Porsche, and he is making right now with his little mobile detailing car business. He's making almost $15,000 a month washing people's cars, just because he decided
Wow.
I'm gonna start this. And we believe in limitation because it's like, oh, money's hard to make or it's hard to come by or all these things. And yet here's my 17-year-old son being like, money not hard to make, it's super easy.
Yeah. This car's probably nicer than yours.
Seriously. Seriously, it's insane. I'm proud of him. It's a big deal. So Jason, tell me this. We're going to talk a little bit about writing today. Your core message is about writing. Pastors are natural communicators, but most are too busy to write a book, or so they say. And I love that you're going to get into this because, check this out. You didn't know this, but like right here, my book, I just finished this up. It's releasing on May 6th. And so,
Oh,
dude, I'm pumped about this
congratulations.
idea too. But talk to us about writing, because you're exactly right. We pastors don't think that I have the capacity or even a message to write.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just can't imagine why every pastor doesn't have a book or 20 written.
Yeah, book or
I mean,
20, I love that.
honestly, you're literally writing 3 to 4 chapters of a book every Sunday in your
Right.
sermon.
Truth.
And for so many pastors today, the methodology that they develop tends to be they work in a series, right? Where for the next 6 weeks, we're covering the book of Joshua.
Yeah.
I can work with pastors to take existing manuscripts that they've already put into the world and craft that into a meaningful book. Now, maybe you don't want your first book to be about the book of Joshua. Wouldn't be a bad idea. I think there's some pretty incredible stories and
Oh my gosh.
morals
Yeah.
and values that people could grasp onto. But you've put your heart out into the world. And it really comes down to finding your core message. I think that's what paralyzes most people. The fact that I don't want to get it wrong.
Right.
Here's the little secret though. You can change a book after it's written. Publishing today is not publishing in the 1900s.
Right.
When you put a book out there, you're giving a digital copy to your publishing house. They print off generally as needed, unless you're a mega, producer and they're going to print off 10,000 copies because they know that, every store in the neighborhood is going to need it. But for most pastors, that's not the case. You're going to be printing on an as needed or a small batch basis.
Exactly.
So what? You're like me, and the title of your first book, it was awful and it needs to be changed. And I'm going to be working with my publisher to change it in the next month because I realize it's limiting my sales. It's limiting my message. But the first step is getting the message out there.
Right.
Being willing to say, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a book.
Wow. I love that.
And what we've done is we developed a 3-meeting process where we
Okay.
work with our clients, whether they be pastors, doctors, attorneys, individuals who have just started an entrepreneurship journey. And in meeting one, we uncover the core of their heart. Who are you? What do you want to represent? What message do you want to put into the world? Then meeting two, and sometimes meeting two might be broken up into 2 separate meetings because of the length and how much we want to get in depth in the book. I take an in-depth interview with them. And in that in-depth interview, I'm able to uncover the key points of what we should be talking about in the book. We then take the information gathered and create the first draft of the book for them. Now, for some
Genius.
people, yeah, the interview process is really the key. When it comes down to it, is having somebody able to ask you the right questions,
Right.
draw more out of you. And then we do the behind the scenes work of cleaning it up, putting it into a formatable, uh, you know, methodology that you can offload to a publisher. Sometimes we'll incorporate the use of a professional editor and a professional manuscript compiler so that they can get it very clean and very nice.
Hmm.
Then we get it out to the client, allow them to preview it, make edits, make additions. And oftentimes what they're doing is saying, you know what? I mentioned something and that reminds me of a story and I want to insert this story into the book. So what I'm giving you isn't some, just ghost written book. It's the book that you would write if you had the time.
Wow. Wow. You make it sound like that's, super fast. What's the time frame on something like this?
So it depends on the commitment of the individual, but
Okay.
we probably, in our first meeting, that's going to be about a 45-minute discovery conversation when we decide that, yes, I want to write this book. And in the 45-minute conversation, we're going to talk about what does that book look like. Our second meeting can go anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. That's the interview. That's the meat of the book.
Okay.
And then we're going to probably take 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how busy we are, to compile this all into the right platform, spacing, all the things that we need to give something deliverable back to the end user. And then if they want to take that first draft and maybe make a couple of quick edits, get it right up to the publisher, wonderful. If they
Wow.
want to, like I said, add in and insert more story, more context, more body, no problem. And sometimes we're even re-engaged to help develop those stories at a deeper level so that they're more connecting and, trying. Typically today, I'm seeing many people going back to our first part of the conversation of, developing streams of income.
Okay.
They're leveraging books to drive towards some form of the business model that they may have. Maybe, as a pastor, you have a life coaching business that you're developing on the side. And this is something that can be a proof of concept for you.
Mm.
Maybe you're, a real estate agent and you're looking at, more ways to show yourself, establish yourself as a person of authority in the space. This is how we do that. Maybe you're a church planter and you just want to have something to be able to hand out to the community that
Nice. Yeah.
shares the heart of your church. I mean, if I sat down and asked a pastor, give me the heart of your church. What's the
Hmm.
most important thing for you?
Hmm.
Do you think most pastors could talk for 2 hours if I kept asking the right questions?
You 100% they could.
So why not turn that conversation into a book that
Wow.
establishes your church as the authority
Mm.
and the place to be in Easton, Texas?
Okay. What do you think what are the barriers that people or pastors kind of raise up when it comes to this idea? Or do you maybe do you think or do you interact with people that have never even approached the idea before?
Yeah, I think the number one barrier is the same for most, time. That
Mm.
was my number one barrier, just saying, I don't
Okay.
have the time to do that. This is going to take too long. Well, if we're talking about creating an entity that's going to last beyond you,
Yeah.
can
It's
be
timeless.
purchased anywhere in the world, translated into every language imaginable. If you've got a message to speak, there's no reason why we can't put it in a book.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
after time, I think the next thing, this was my big stopper because I knew I could talk. I knew I could communicate a message. But I told myself growing up, I told myself as an adult, and up until a year and a half ago, I believed it myself. I'm a speaker, but I don't write.
Mm.
If you were to look at that board right behind me, the scribbles on that thing would make a doctor, blush. I don't have nice writing. I've never had nice writing. I'm left-handed. I smear stuff as I write across a page. It takes me a lot of time to sit down and type an email. And you think about how many times you've gone to type out an email. And you type it out and you read it. That's all I want to say. Delete it. Start over. And we're talking about a 2 to 3 paragraph at most email can take you 45 minutes. I mean, Kevin, tell me I'm not alone in this, right?
Seriously, yeah. Come on.
So when people think about that, like it makes their skin crawl that I have to write. And now you don't want me to write just 3 paragraphs. You're talking about 15, 20 chapters.
Yeah. Come on.
Oh
Hundreds of
no.
pages.
Yeah, that sounds, I don't do that. No. And I think so many people just have that mental barrier. I'm not a writer. Well, you are a communicator. And
Exactly.
with today's environment, if you're a communicator, you can be a writer and I can help you get there.
It also sends a message of credibility. A book does so much for you to establish your name, your message, your, credibility. It does a lot for you.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely agree.
So, okay, so on you have an offer for people, for listeners, with a free book writing consultation. How do they access that?
Yeah. So I've got a website, Jason Purvis Keynote. .com. They can go on there, go on to the book now feature, and simply type into the message there the name of your podcast, offer.
Okay.
So all we need to do is it's Pastors Thriving, correct?
Pastors Thriving, yeah.
Yep. So Pastors Thriving, offer, and free consultation to allow for them to understand, hey, what does it look like to write a book through Jason and his team? Is this the appropriate thing for me? Is now the time? And we can discuss further at that point.
Man,
And
that's so cool.
just for being a part of your podcast community, Kevin, that offer is going to be free. And especially coming through the pastoral space, any services that we bring to them are going to be at a 30% discount.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. Dude, I just opened up your website right now, and what a cool space that you've got. That, man, super pro. So I love it, man. You're going to be well handled. So this is good. This is good.
Yeah, thank you.
So you got some more message that you want to convey to pastors today. What else is kind of stirring and brewing in your thinking that is something that you want to discuss?
Kevin, are you just opening the door to let me go wherever I want at this point?
Come on, bro. Come on.
So listen, this is the Pastors Thriving podcast. And at the end of the day, maybe one day it will be the Pastors Thriving Conference. You got that in you, Kevin?
I do. I have it.
Let's go.
It's on my mind.
Speak life. Today we're at the Pastors Thriving podcast. Pastors, men and women of God, we have got to restore something that is so crucial to God's heart, that is under deep attack in our modern culture. The heart cry of my message as I go out and I speak to communities around the world is authentic masculinity. And masculinity is truly under attack by so many forces. And I want to tell you this, before all of the red flags start going up inside of you and all the defenses start coming up to say, well, what about women? And what about this group? And what about that group? Men have been in power literally since Adam blamed Eve for biting the apple, which, by the
Truth.
way, read it a little closer. She turns and gives the apple to her husband who was with her. So
Right.
any of you who have heard some crazy story about women being easily deceived by the devil and men have stronger resistance to the devil, that's baloney.
It is.
Adam was literally standing next to his wife while the devil was talking to her, and he wasn't man enough to get in the way.
That is
And
the
that's
truth.
what I'm talking about. We need men to step up and be the leaders that we're called to be. I believe wholeheartedly in growth and advancement of women. And I think that there is so much more work to be done on that side of the table. But in the movement to advance women, the unfortunate outcome of some has been to demonize men and demonize masculinity and to create a caricature of all men based on the worst men.
Wow.
And we always have a problem. It doesn't matter what group you look at. When you create a caricature of all men based on the worst men, you limit everybody. And we know God's heart is for wholeness and completeness. And he chose to represent his fullness of being on earth through Adam and Eve equally. They were his representation. And unfortunately, what's happened over the last several decades in our world has been that in order to create equality, there's been a grinding away at the value of masculinity.
That's the
And I
truth,
don't think
man.
that needed to be the case.
That's the
We
truth.
were just talking about not limiting things, right? But we look at it as a single piece of pie. That, okay, in order for women to get more pie, we have to take away from men. No, we just need to build a more holistic pie that allows women to thrive in areas that they should thrive and allow men to thrive in areas that they should thrive. And people hear that word should and they get, oh, well, what are you saying? Women should only be barefoot and in the kitchen? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying each woman should have the self-determinative power to be able to define where she's going to stand. And a man shouldn't be confined to always see. This is, you've heard the term, Kevin, happy wife, happy life.
Right.
Maybe even said it once or twice, right?
Yeah, for sure. Right.
I smile and at the same time I cringe. I hate that statement. Why is my happiness dependent on somebody else? And why do I always have to succumb my well-being for somebody else's well-being? I
Can
love my
I answer
wife.
that? Can I answer that?
Yeah.
I think it's because men in our nature are still standing behind our wives as they grab that piece of fruit.
Mm.
There's still this lack of leadership on our part to actually step into the role that God has called us to be.
Yeah. And I think about that, and that's a beautiful image. I think about that, and the reality is we should be co-equals in our stance towards each other.
Yeah.
And we should be willing to take the step of leading our families. And to me, authentic masculinity, there's a tug of war that exists between abused responsibility, which is what we've seen in the worst parts of the true toxic man. There are toxic men in this world. I don't
Oh yeah.
believe toxic. I don't believe masculinity is toxic, but there are toxic men. Oh, wait, there are toxic women. There are toxic people. When it plays out in men, it's this ultra like power, control, strength, and sometimes starts to flow into like you got to be outdoorsy. Like, I heard on a podcast somebody say if a man can't do a double leg takedown, he shouldn't even call himself a man.
What is that? I mean, come on, that's so stereotypical. That's insane.
What does that even mean?
Exactly.
The reality is, masculinity comes from a space of embracing who you were created to be,
Mm-hmm.
choosing the sacrifice for the greater good of others, being willing to take risks,
Mm-hmm.
and being willing to own the responsibility of those risks.
Yeah.
And in my viewpoint, I look at every man needing to follow through in 4 key areas of his life.
Oh, this ought to be good.
So, for every man, you should measure yourself regularly in 4 areas:
Okay.
your physical preparedness, your relational readiness, your mental toughness, and your values based living.
Okay.
If you constantly seek to improve in those 4 areas, you'll never master all of them, I promise. But if you constantly seek to improve in those 4 areas, you will find yourself ahead of the game and actually leading instead of feeling like you're chasing, instead
Yeah.
of feeling like you're always behind and always trying to figure it out. Measure yourself. Join a brotherhood, a community of others that will gather around this same thought process that, you know what, man, I've got to be better physically prepared. What does that mean? Well, does that mean, you have to be, the most in shape 2% body fat guy, bench pressing 400 pounds and running, 12 miles with backpacks on? No. But what it means is that you haven't neglected your health to the point that you lack the energy to show up and be present in the places you're called to be. Which might be on the floor,
Yeah.
in front of the couch, rolling around with your kids. How many times have you come home too tired to give your kids the energy that they need from their dad?
Oh, for sure, man.
I also look at physical preparedness as the responsibility to protect others. As a man, our homes should be physically prepared. Is your home in proper order? Do you have the things you need to protect your house? Are the locks working? Do you check them? Do you upkeep your cash flow? I look at cash flow as part of your physical maintenance because that's what allows you to provide for physical care and safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that you should have whatever it takes for you to protect your home from anybody who would try and invade it.
Man, that's good. That's good. This is so fundamentally basic, but it's so overwhelmingly smart. Like, this is just so good.
But you know what, Kevin? It's the basics that we miss when we're striving after everything else in the world, and we turn back and we look at our life and we say, oh my gosh,
Right.
what have I been doing? So we have to
Jason,
be
tell me
physically
this. Why do you feel like there's neglect on any one of these issues?
Well, I think in large part, we put the goalposts in the wrong place.
Okay.
So we focus in on one. I think most men, if you ask them of those 4 areas, are you good at any one of these things? Being physically prepared, mentally tough, relationally ready, or value centered? I think most men would say, yeah, I'm good at one. I don't know what it is. maybe you're great with relationships. You're great with people. You're caring, you're kind, and you're outgoing, and people love to be around you. But inside, you're weak mentally.
Yeah.
And the reason why people love to be around you is because they'll get whatever they want out of you because you're a people pleaser.
Right.
And because of that, you can't be values driven because you're driven by the whims of everyone else around you. See, these four pillars, they don't act in tension. They act in unison with one another. But the problem is, like most people, we're really good at one instrument. And we
Makes
don't
sense.
get good at all the instruments in the orchestra. And so I encourage men to challenge themselves to step up beyond accepting that, hey, I can be good at one of these and the rest will go by the wayside because things will suffer in your life.
Right. I mean, like anything else, this is about balance. So how do you bring balance to something like this when, when someone's going to say, hey, I'm strong in this area, but I'm weak in some other areas? Is this an element of like strengthen your strengths, or do you just work on the greatest weakness? Where do you focus first?
Yeah. It's funny you say that, Kevin, because I'm a huge fan in most areas of my life that we focus on our strengths.
Mm-hmm.
But this is so fundamental to who you are. They're the four pillars of masculinity. Without any one, your house will crumble.
Wow.
And I would say shore up your strengths and become aware of your next opportunity to grow.
Okay. That's
And
good.
what is most important. So like right now in my life, I would say physical preparedness is something I'm pretty good at. My mental toughness, I'm working on. I'm getting stronger mentally. Now, that doesn't mean that, what does mental toughness look like to me? It looks like, am I able to self-motivate or do I need external motivations? Am I able to think and learn? This is one that's really hard for me as an adult, right? I'm out of school. Nobody is making me learn anything. I can get by in my day-to-day life without further education.
Makes sense.
But I choose to incorporate more learning. I choose to challenge my own beliefs. That's a huge value in mental toughness.
Mm-hmm.
And now, as a father, exerting the mental toughness it takes to deal with 3 children who are all making large demands of you and your spouse, which
That's the
means some
truth.
of the desires that you want of your spouse can't be met because she's been demanded out and touched out and hugged out and talked out by those
Yeah.
3 tiny humans that you love so much but wish would just go away for a week so I can have my wife back.
100%. How old are your kids?
That's just an analogy. That's not, that's my life. I've got 3 kids, 9, 7, and 4 at the moment.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. But you know what? You're 100% right. There are those moments. And my wife will say the same words. I've been dealing with children all day long. I just need a break from that. And what do we want in that moment? I want some me time, right? I want some time with her. And she's like, you know what? I need some time away from you too.
Right.
And that's got to
Unless
be
you're going to
okay.
be bringing me chocolate or massaging my feet, I don't want you in the room.
That's right. That's right. Man, this is so
No,
good.
and what I really believe in this, here's the reason why I don't believe that any man can be a master of all 4 areas at any time. Because your life is ever evolving.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how old are your kids, Kevin?
17, 14, 13, and 9.
Okay. So your youngest is right where my oldest is.
Yeah.
Right? You're kind of on the flip side of this. And if you rewind the tape, especially with 5 and sounded like, maybe twins in the middle there, uh, you remember the days where everybody needed you for everything.
All the time, man.
And nobody could so much as find their shoes without assistance.
That's right. That's right.
And that required a certain amount of mental toughness.
It does.
To not lose it.
It probably more mental toughness than we think it does. I mean, we look at parenting as like, okay, we're keeping humans alive. You're doing so much more than keeping humans alive.
Yeah. And if you're trying to be an intentional father, an intentional leader, you're trying to instill your values.
Yeah.
And so one of the most taxing things for me is recognizing, hey, this is a teaching opportunity right now.
Right.
And if I will engage with my kid who just blew up at his sister and is, not in a good space, if I will engage with where he is right now, I'm going to give him tools to better his marriage 25 years from now.
Right. Man, you are 100% right. That's so good. So, okay. So is this the content of your book, Taming Toxic Masculinity, or is there some other message that's there?
So the message in Taming Toxic Masculinity, which will be rebranded here in a few months,
Okay.
to Authentic Men in a Toxic World.
Okay, cool.
It's a little bit clearer of what the message is when you hear that titling. So in Authentic Masculinity, as it's currently titled, Taming Toxic Masculinity, the message really is, I want to help men tame the toxicity that exists around the conversation of masculinity.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean suppressing who you are as a man.
Yeah.
It also doesn't mean needing to go out on a 9-day hike through the woods to find your identity and kill a bear with your bare hands, or even a squirrel for that matter. I don't know if I can get either one, to be honest with you. What it means is truly looking introspectively and being able to understand the values that you want to live out and press through into the next generation, whether that be your own kids or just the world around you. Because think about this. Think about what's happened to masculinity in our culture. I can think back to, not that I was alive then, but songs that we heard in the 40s and 50s. And they were like, uplifting men about, how good their man was to them and how nice it was that they had a good man and things like that. When's the last time you heard a top 10 song that was positive about men?
Oh, it doesn't happen anymore. Not at all.
Yeah. We as a culture have downgraded men.
Yeah.
Fathers used to be the center point of sitcoms.
Right.
Now they're the butt of the jokes.
They are. And
if they're even present.
Yeah, it's so disrespectful. And I think this is like, this is a whole nother can of worms that we don't have time or effort to be able to get into today. But the issue is like, there's an identity crisis that's happening in our world today that is like spiritual warfare number one. And it has to do with this whole gender thing, which goes right back to masculinity. And if we would get correct on that one, all of this stuff would be resolved. And I mean, this is not going to happen. Our enemy is not going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, and the truth is, this is the Pastors Thriving podcast, and how does this all tie back to this audience? Well, I know that so many in this audience are probably fathers.
Yeah.
And even if you're not a biological father, you're fathering a community.
Mm-hmm.
And tapping into your God-ordained role there and what he's put inside of men uniquely to do. I believe that there are differences that God imprinted on the DNA of men and women. I mean, it's literally in our biology. We're not built the same, and it's for a reason. There are things that men naturally do that need to be celebrated and enjoyed, just as there are things that women naturally do that need to be celebrated and enjoyed. Now, the goal for you as a pastor should be to not only find and live out your true identity, but help the men in your congregation understand that even in a world that calls them toxic, our God designed them to be strong,
Yeah.
to be caring, to be self-sacrificial. And I wish we had time today, Kevin, to go into the fact that what we think of as the modern man providing for his family, that is such a misnomer. And, back in biblical days, agricultural communities, there was communal work. Your wife was working alongside you in the field to
Right.
bring home the bacon.
That's true. Yeah.
Your kids were in the field with you.
That was all
You
a
were
family
their
effort.
teacher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you were leading up that effort as the father figure in the home.
Yeah.
And so
I love that.
I think returning to true family values and centering our lives as much as we can around being available for our families is going to be phenomenal change in our communities. When you can change a home, you can change a block. You can change a block, you can change a community. You can change a community, you can change a city, you can change a state, you can change a nation. And we all know that our nation is in desperate need of a rising up of value-centered leaders to carry forward some of the great things that began this country that we've gotten so far away from.
Man, that is the truth. That is the truth. Obviously this is one of those things that we could talk all day on, because there's so much more content and comment that we could make on something like this to just bolster and encourage pastors in their effort towards yet another thing they've got to think about when it comes to healthy church communities and all those things. But wow, thank you, Jason, for bringing such a valuable and important opinion on really something that is under attack and at war in our culture today. You've given us so much to think about. I really appreciate what you've done here.
Kevin, I appreciate your platform, your service to the incredibly important group and community that I hope they know, Pastor, I hope you know you're appreciated.
Man,
I hope you
that's
know
good.
that your sacrifices, your late nights, your early mornings, those mean something. The fact that you just spent Easter exhausted and away from your family so that we could celebrate with ours, thank you.
That's good.
Thank
That's
you.
good. That's good. Well, hey, friend, let me point you in the direction of Jason. You can check out his website, jasonpurviskeynote.com. That will be in the show notes. You can also find his book, and we'll put a link in there on Amazon, where you can find everything else on Amazon. So it's there too. Check that out. And then, Jason, one more time, remind us, if people go to your site, how do they get this free writing consultation? Tell us one more time.
Yeah, so on the website, which will be linked in the show notes, there is a book now feature. Click in there on your messaging, just say the Pastors Thriving offer, and we will go ahead and honor that for you, as well as the 30% discount on any services that we do provide for you. And if it's okay, Kevin, if I could just say one other thing, between now and Father's Day will be the release of my next book, The Authentic Father.
Cool.
And that is the one, I feel like Taming Toxic Masculinity was like dipping my toe in the water, and I'm going headfirst into authentic fatherhood.
Oh man,
God
that's
has
so
placed
good.
a voice and a mission on my heart, a message on my heart for fathers, and to lead and develop fatherhood in an authentic way. And I
That's so
can't
good.
wait to get that message out.
Oh, I love it. Well, we'll be looking forward to that resource. Jason, thanks so much for your time today. Pleasure to have you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today to Pastors Thriving Podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, I'd love for you to just take a minute and leave a review and maybe a few stars on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback really helps me to grow this community and to reach even more pastors just like you. And listen, if you're ready to take the next step, check out one of my upcoming courses designed to help you thrive in ministry and life. For more details or to connect directly with me, you can send me an email at coaching@kevinelworth.live or visit my website, pastorsthriving.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.